Umpire Mag feed, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, I was joined by Arizona Cardinals fan Ollie Kent as we look ahead to the team's upcoming season. Ollie discusses Jacoby Brissett being the starter going into the season.
The betting odds, the win margin, the over-under for wins has gone down since he signed his contract. But that just tells you what the league thinks about him.
I ask Ollie about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s recent struggles in training camp. There's a clip of him and Michael Wilson sharing reps and much more as Ollie predicts the team's end of season record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy.
There was no doubt it was right to move on from Kyler Murray.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host today, Andy Davis, and we are here for Team Season Preview 13 out of 32. And as you can see from the title of the episode, today's team is the Arizona Cardinals. Now, before we bring our guest in, this podcast is sponsored by Fantasy Game Day app. Use code Andy5 at checkout for money back off your first paid lineup. Now, with me, I've got a returning guest. He is one of our well-known Cardinals guests on the show. Back today is Ollie Kent. Ollie, it is great having you back on.
Great to be back on, mate.
It's always good having you on, and I think this year, we're both going to have. We talked about it a little bit in one of the off-season shows we did, but it's. I think for both our teams, it's going to be. If we're not in the top 3 picks this year, I'd be astounded.
Yeah. I mean, strength of schedule, permitting, but I always before these watched last year's, and for now consecutive years, I've ashamedly come into the next one and being like, oh my goodness, looking back on it, whoa, how far we've fallen.
Yes, it's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
Always the hope. But you have to hope.
Yeah, I suppose there's no point going into the year with no hope. And I was saying this in one of our last shows, I think it was our last team, which was the Commanders. We were saying that when you got teams like, let's say a team who's been good all these years and never won anything, you think about the Niners are a good example, the Bills, in recent years, the Ravens. I think them going into a year with all this hope of winning a Super Bowl and every week is basically, a must-win game, number 1 seed and all that. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress involved as a fan of those teams, where if you're a fan where you're expecting the start of the year to never do well and you like the league as a whole, you can be quite relaxed and just quite enjoy it as a neutral. And just, I think when that win hits, it feels even more special and it makes.
No, I agree. And the great thing about the sport is you can hyper focus on something. There's always a storyline with your team, a rookie or a new signing, seeing how they're doing. Are you competitive? And you can always play spoiler as well. There's some great satisfaction in just bit I can only imagine the Jets over the years have just been ecstatic when they're the only team that beats, or has that win over an upset. So it's always good from that respect. And then it just means that in December, you start looking at the draft a bit earlier and you're into draft season.
Yeah, I do remember in all those years of mediocrity, all the years I have been in mediocrity as a Dolphins fan, I always remember beating the Patriots was always a really good thing, like the Miami Miracle, or when you beat, especially a team who is kind of a team that everyone hates and a team that is, the dominant force at that time. We were a bit of a bogey team to Tom Brady in Miami. So it was kind of, those wins always felt really nice because you were, even though you knew they were going to have more wins than you, they were going to win the division in your expense, they were going to probably reach a Super Bowl. When you got that win over Tom Brady and the Patriots, it was always quite nice.
I completely get it. I mean, I can't say that we necessarily have a bogey team. Yeah. we do cause every now and again. We cause an upset for the Rams or the 49ers. Although, actually, I'll tell a lie. I know who our bogey team is. It's the Cowboys. No matter what, however bad we are, we seem to beat the Cowboys, home or away.
Well, we were due to have a second guest as well on the show. Sam Morgan was due to come on the show as well as Ollie, a fellow Cardinals fan. He is stuck in traffic, so he may join us he may not. So you may see him particularly in the win, lost, or tie segment, but you may not. We'll see how it goes on. But Ollie, let's head into the ins and outs of the Cardinals off-season. Ins include the likes of Isaac Samalo, Tyler Algier, Kendrick Bourne, Devin Duvernay, Gardner Minshew, Tegan Quetariano, as well as likes of Andrew Billings and LJ Collier, as well as former Patriots linebacker Jack Gibbons, who has appeared on the podcast socials. As well as this, you took Jeremiah Love, third overall in the draft, as well as taking the likes of Chase Pesontis, Carson Beck, and Caleb Proctor, amongst many others. And then the main outs include the likes of Kyler Murray to the Vikings, Greg Dortch to the Lions, Michael Carter to the Titans, as well as Evan Brown to the Texans, Calais Campbell to the Ravens, Alvin Tomlinson to the Chargers, Akeem Davis Gaither to the Colts, as well as the likes of Kelvin Beachum, Jonah Williams, Will Hernandez, and Josiah DeGuara. Ollie, for you, overall, your take on the team's off-season as a whole?
I think the big one to start with is the coach, obviously, the coaching change, right? Jonathan Gannon out, Mike LaFleur in. And I just think like it's a do or die year for the GM, Monty Osfort, in terms of he brought in Jonathan Gannon, he stuck with Kyler, he was instrumental in the benching of Kyler at the back end of last year. All these kind of things that he's done. And all he's got to show for it is, I think it's a 15-35 record, or 15-36 record, something like that. And so, yes, you bring in the new coach, and the coach is 0-0, but the GM is, at like 300 as a score. It's ridiculous. So, and for someone who is, like I say, probably in a do or die season, like if they don't perform well, or his picks don't perform well, or his moves don't perform well this season, he's probably gone. For someone in that position, he's not exactly made, I need to save my job moves in the off season, right? I love the Jeremiah Love pick. I know a lot of people question the position value and all these kind of things. Ultimately, for me, he's the best player that was available in the draft. Would you rather have taken him slightly later? Sure, understand it. Are we as a team in the best position there necessarily to take him on? Maybe not. But anytime you're adding the best talent in the draft, it's not a bad thing, right? I think the team probably wanted to trade down and explore some options, maybe get some capital next year, especially with the QB situation. But it is what it is. We've got, again, best player available. I like the second round pick at guard. Certainly like an O-line. You can never go wrong taking O-line. I think right tackle was a massive issue for us last year. Jonah Williams was awful. I don't necessarily think we've addressed that in the moves we've made this year either, which is concerning. But, and the defense is what it is. Like, it's not great. We haven't really added premium talent to it. And the QB situation is just awful. I saw your Browns discussion about, is it the worst QB battle? I think this is probably the worst QB battle. It's just a terribly diabolical situation to be in, and the fact that you're being held out and hamstrung by Jacoby Brissett is awful.
Yeah, I mean, that saga seems to have come to an end. It's I believe there was a deal. So the contract if I get out the full details, so
15.5 bump up, no extra years. Potential to earn 21 million, which, like, on the face of it, is not a terrible deal if you factor it against other starting QBs in the league. I think it's like the 31st contract value for starting QBs or whatever it is. But just the optics of it as well, like how we performed last year, where we performed last year, and people point to stats and stuff. If you actually watched the Cardinals game, which not a lot of people did, I put myself through it. It's all just stat padding at the end of the game, right? There's, fantastic. You got 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, down 30 points. Like, it's empty. It's empty calories. It's empty stats. It's worthless, right? And to reward that kind of mediocrity is crazy to me. But the biggest thing for me is you've taken a QB in the third round, right? you've brought in Gardner Minshew, right? So you've got Carson Beck and Gardner Minshew now, who are additions to your QB room, right? Is Jacoby Brissett $50 million worth more than Gardner Minshew or Carson Beck? I just don't think the answer is yes. And actually, from a fan perspective, I would rather just throw Carson Beck out there and see if you have something. And if the answer is no, you know, it's still in the same boat next year where you need a QB anyway. But all we're doing now is moving him further down the depth chart, right? And it's the same thing with Gardner Minshew. Is Jacoby Brissett $50 million more than Jacoby? What's the betting odds, the win margin, the over under for wins has gone down since he signed his contract. But that just tells you what the league thinks about Jacoby Brissett. So you might as well just run with Gardner Minshew and Beck and just said, whatever, off you go. We're not going to be hamstrung. The best way I can put this is no other team in the league would have given him that contract. No other team in the league would have given him that contract. It's just insane to me.
Yeah, it's hard to think of who would have done that. I mean, you look at, to be fair, right now, we look at the Falcons QB situation with Tua's injury, Penix's injury. I think they might have gone out and I think they've went out today, and I forget they signed someone today, and I forget who it is they've signed. Oh my God, it's going to kill me. But I think they might have gone for it. But it's hard to see anyone else apart from maybe a team who was willing to spend money on a backup, which I don't think you spend that money on a backup. So
but that's what Jacoby is, though. But that's what Jacoby is. Like, he's not in a depth chart. He's not the backup, but he's a backup player. Like, that's the caliber of play that he is. Just because somebody's a de facto starter, right, doesn't mean that they deserve de facto starter money. You know, like it's funny. You talk about the Falcons potentially wanting him. What are they paying Tua and Michael Penix? It's not 15 million. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's insane to me. And I think it probably speaks actually to the larger issue of Monty Ossenfort and how he's gone about managing things, which is there was no doubt it was right to move on from Kyler Murray. Right? Okay, that was the correct move. No one has an issue with it. The dead cap is whatever. We've got so much cap space. Who cares? You know, whatever. Right? Good for him. Okay. If you know that that's your plan to move on, and your best answer to it is Jacoby Brissett, that is insane. That is insane to me. Like, you've known that you wanted to move on for him for over a year now, and the best that you could come up with was Jacoby Brissett, and we'll pay him. Like, I think a lot of the criticisms about the Jeremiah Love pick as well is, you know, should that have been like Ty Simpson? Right? Like, obviously, we weren't going to be in a position to get Mendoza, but if your best option is to go for Jacoby Brissett, you don't deserve to be in that position for me. And it's funny, obviously, talking to you as a Miami fan, you know, with Willis being signed as a QB, he's projected to earn $1 million more than Jacoby Brissett this year in contract value, right? After the pay bump. So you're telling me that during free agency, you were able to get outbidded and that money was just far too much for Willis. But now you're going to pay it to Jacoby Brissett. It's an awful look, and it's an awful management of the QB transition.
Now, I know teams don't, certainly owners, you know, people under pressure, you know, GMs, head coaches, whatever, you know, they wouldn't want to tank. But do you think there was an element of this thinking they're maybe thinking of 2027?
I don't think Monty Ossenfort could do that. I don't. He can't think about 2027 because, in all truth, I don't think he'll be there. He doesn't have the luxury of making decisions in the 2026 season, saying, okay, and this is what I'm going to do in the 2027 season. Because ultimately, he's a 4-year, you know, he's a GM going into his 4th year with a record of 15 and 37, right? His hand-picked coach got fired for the worst record we've ever had in a season, right? The worst finish ever and the worst defense, and he's a defensive-minded head coach. The franchise QB supposedly has been moved, and you've had no backup plan, and all your draft picks haven't necessarily materialized in the way that you want them to. You know, you look at Marvin Harris Jr., for example, right? he can't afford to say, I'm going to bank on 2027. He might not be here to make that pick, right? And that's his own doing.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it does make it even more stupid. They didn't have some sort of plan in place.
He should just got like, all in. Like, you've got he has nothing to lose, because this time next year, he's probably not going to have a job.
But could he have gone all in? Because, albeit his own doing, but the squad isn't there, and I think it would have taken a lot of capital to try and get this squad at least in position to compete for a playoff spot. I mean, you think about, there's not many stars in this team. Trey McBride's the obvious one, but there's so many holes in this roster. I don't think he would have even if he'd gone all in, I don't think he could have even half of fixed the roster like maybe you'd have liked to.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate the Cardinals roster, and it's why there was a lot of positivity and hope with it last year as well, right? You mentioned Trey McBride, obviously, who is like the number one tight end in the league. He's fantastic, all pro, right? But you then start to look at the other weapons on that offense. You've got Marv, for who all accounts, has underperformed, but he's not some, washed up scrub or whatever. Like, he's essentially playing like a number 2 receiver. Like, he had 900 yards last year, right? If your wide receiver 2 gets you 900 yards and a couple of touchdowns, that's a pretty good wide receiver 2. Unfortunately for him, he's obviously been drafted at number 4 overall, and he's expected not to be a number 2 overall receiver. He's meant to, be up there with Justin Jefferson and those guys and fighting for those yardage and statistics and those accolades, right? You have Michael Wilson, who had a breakout year last year and has always been good when he's actually been given the opportunities. When Marv's not in the lineup, he's excelled, right? So he's no scrub, essentially, right? My perspective is we essentially have 2 premium number 2 wide receivers. We need one of them to, grab the number 1 spot, firmly, and say this is who's the number 1 on the team. You have Trey McBride, like we say, and then you have, Jeremiah Love, who, by all accounts, is an incredible running back. He's going to be really good in the league, and then he's backed up by a Tyler Algier and an agent James Conner. Like, there's no shortage of firepower on the offense. I think the offensive line is obviously, can be suspect at times, but it's not awful. Defensively, you still have the likes of Josh Sweat, right, who's a good player. Walter Nolan is going to be amazing. Like, the small reps we saw of him last year, he was incredible. He just needs to stay healthy. There's some good talent across the secondary. Garrett Williams, before he got injured, was like all pro level slot. Some good outside corners, and I think that probably spoke to the scheme more with the coach, Jonathan Gannon and stuff. But the big thing is, if you put any average QB on this team, you turn around and you're like, wow. Like, the big one for me that I'm monitoring at the moment is Baker Mayfield. Like, if Baker doesn't get his contract and he's not happy, in a heartbeat, I would give him his $50 million. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be, away from the Buccaneers next year. It looks like reported that they're way off his valuation. And I think there's a lot of teams that would want one. I think, for me personally, the one that comes to my mind is Pittsburgh. It just feels like a Pittsburgh quarterback. But you think about, they've gone and got Will Howard, so maybe they won't go Baker Mayfield. So I think the Cardinals will definitely be in consideration. I'm just trying to think of other teams who probably need a quarterback. There's definitely some. I just can't think top of my head.
Yeah, I think the talent's obviously the other thing. Like, I've just spoken there a lot about the skill players. Like, it's not an attractive spot for a QB to come in, right? And you've now got an offensive-minded head coach as well in Mike LaFleur, who's part of that McVay tree, right? There is optimism and things to look forward to this year as a Cardinal fan. Like, you want to see some spark on offense, right? You want to see that, and you want to become an attractive destination for a good QB. You mentioned obviously the draft position potential for next year. I just think it won't happen with our strength of schedule. We play in the NFC West. Even, we're obviously going to lose a ton of games this year, but the likes of Miami, the Jets, Cleveland, if we're all tied, we'll get moved up. Like, it only takes Atlanta, Miami, Cleveland and the Jets to have the same record as us, and we're 5th overall, right? And that's 3 or 4 QBs could be off the board before we even get to ours. Like, you could be way off. So it is quite an important year for us, certainly on the offense. I think the defense is sort of here nor there. Like, Nick Rallis was a holdover from Jonathan Gannon, but by all accounts, from what's been said in the media and stuff, they were trying to get rid of him. They were trying to move on from him, and they just couldn't find any takers at that point in time. So they stuck with him. But he's probably out the door at the end of the year either, unless there's a dramatic turnaround in quality on the defense.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and the defense. Yeah, I think you mentioned Josh Sweat. I mean, I always remember his performance in that Super Bowl for the Eagles was arguably he could have easily won Super Bowl MVP in that game. He was that good. Moving on though, Michael, you mentioned Marvin Harris Jr. Now I don't know whether you, Ollie, have seen the clips on social.
Everything. I'm glued in. Don't you worry.
There's a clip of him and Michael Wilson sharing reps, practice drills, and Michael Wilson, he's there catching it, runs on, nice. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is dropping a lot of these balls. Now, Mike LaFleur said that he is not concerned about this, and we all know that there was I want to think there was a receiver that had the same thing happen, and he went out and balled out in his rookie year. But do you buy much into that? I personally don't. I don't buy much into training camp. I think it's, players warming up, or sometimes players aren't playing at full speed. So I think either way, whether it's someone playing an amazing ball or having an amazing play recorded or something bad, I don't personally feel it's that going to reflect that much on the season to a certain extent. But as a Cardinals fan, seeing that someone who you've mentioned, I've mentioned loads on the show, has struggled in his first 2 years, partly due to the expectation of his draft pick, as you said, but also just he's not had the exciting plays that I think we all thought he was going to get when he came out of college. Seeing those plays happen on socials, do they concern you, or do they not worry you in the slightest?
I think they do concern me, just given what the narrative around Marv is at the moment, and actually what his issues are, right? He's not someone who can't get open. Okay, he's a good route runner. He's a big body. He can play well. All of that doesn't matter, right? If you don't catch the ball, and ultimately as a receiver, that's your job, right? Like you could say as a left tackle, right? Okay, you could have the best pass set. You could know who the blitzes are. All this kind of stuff. If you get barreled over within 2 seconds, right? Doesn't matter, right? DBs can have great qualities. If they let the receivers catch the ball, doesn't matter, right? You can really boil it down to like, what is the number one thing you have to do at your job, right? And it's catch the ball as a receiver, unfortunately for him, right? And I think a lot of it is just mental, right? Like he never had a drop issue at Ohio State. I think the other thing is like Marv isn't like this fantasy, lover. You're not in fantasy. There's other receivers you'd rather take because of the electric breakout kind of plays, the run after catch stuff, and all these kind of things. And that's just not who Marv is, right? He's not going to take a slant on the 20-yard line and run it for 80 yards for a score. Like that's just not his game. And it doesn't help that within his same draft class, you had Malik Neighbors, who had an unbelievable rookie year, right? And does do those things. And Brian Johnson Jr., who in his rookie year, they do those things, like they house calls from halfway lines and stuff like that, right? Make guys miss. That's not Marvin's game. Like he will run the best dig route you've ever seen, and he'll either drop it or he'll catch it and maybe get 2 yards extra, right? He's a guy who just needs 10 to 12 targets a game. He gets you 7, 8, 9 receptions. He'll get you 100 yards and maybe a touchdown. And those aren't bad stats. Like that's the reality of it. Those aren't bad stats. Like I say again, like he got 900 yards this last season. Didn't play every game. He probably only needs 1 or 2 more games. He's at 1,000 yards, and maybe we're having a different conversation here about how he takes that next leap. How that kind of stuff. And then the Cardinals suddenly have 3 1,000-yard receivers in terms of Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, and Marvin Harrison Jr. So there is optimism, but it is concerning. Like it is concerning, especially that training camp. Like, just catch the ball. I know it sounds silly, but just catch the ball.
Yeah, because I think when I see things like pro days in a league when they're I remember Zangwills having this amazing play where he was doing this amazing play, this amazing throw. There was no pass rush on him. There was the receivers weren't one-on-one in coverage with someone else. It was, and I think the same thing. I think sometimes in training camp and OTA, those kind of things. I think while you look at when they have these amazing plays, I think I doubt the intensity's there that much. Obviously, the quarterback is redshirted. I don't have much. I don't take much solace in that. But then at the same time, if for the receivers, if you can't even catch a simple ball, or you're fumbling the ball if you're running back or anything like that, or even if you're quarterback and you're fumbling the ball yourself, I kind of feel at that point maybe that's more of a worrying thing because you're doing that, making mistakes there when there isn't any pressure on you, when it is sort of
absolutely
the lack of
but also as well though, like Andy, like he's not a rookie. This isn't his first year. He's had 2 years in the league now. He's entering his third season. Like he's been in that 11-man ball live situation. Like he's been in games. Like, I think the problem with Marv as well is some of his drops have been like in critical moments. Like we could have won the San Francisco game last year at the start of the season if he'd caught the ball, right? That would have been the conversion that we needed. We'd have won the game, right? The Seahawks game on Thursday Night Football, right, was the last game that Kyler Murray played. He had 2 interceptions that game, and both of them were on Marv because he either fluffed the catch or he didn't attack the ball when it was in the air, right? And so those are, and especially the fourth overall pick, like he's going to have the microscope put on him, and he is costing games in those regards. It's not like it's first and down in the first drive, and he's dropped a pass, and then we pick the first down on the next 2 plays or whatever. Like these are critical moments where everyone is watching and waiting for him to make the big play, and he's making these drops, or he's batting it up in the air for an interception. Like it's damaging the team, and so that is going to draw attention to it when it comes to things like training camp and stuff, and it is going to cause concern.
Absolutely. But we'll head on now to our final segment, which is going to be win, loss, or tie. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this segment of the show, each fan that comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a win, loss, or tie answer. Now, the Cardinals, last year, of course, Ollie, you and Sam both came on for last year's show. I mean, Ollie, you've been on for multiple years now, but in 2025, the Cardinals finished with a 3-14 record. Do you by chance remember what you and Sam predicted 12 months ago?
I think we said 11-6, didn't we?
You did, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's not quite how you thought it'd work out.
That is terrible.
Oh my god, that is the best part of the show. These season previews, when you look back at people's predictions from last year, it can go one or two ways. And had a lot of people so far predicting less wins. They've got more. But
you should look at the swing. That's what you should do at the start of everyone. Get a leaderboard and look at the swing. How far off were the predictions? Because that is 11.
Well, the thing is that we had Rory Joe Daniels on for our Bengals season preview, and he predicted last year. Where's it gone? His was, I did have it here written down. He had 13-4, and of course they had 6 wins. But
then they get Joe Burrow hurt, don't they? And stuff. And like Cardinals got Kyler Murray hurt, but I don't think it would have made a massive difference, to be honest with you.
No, I doubt it. But no, I don't think anyone was shocked thinking, why the hell is he picking 13 wins? I mean, everyone thought if everyone's healthy, they'll win at least 10. But no. Moving on though to week 1, it's at the home of Super Bowl 61, a place where you'll be hoping your team's playing in February against the Chargers. Ollie, win, lose, or tie?
It's got to be a loss.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I just think Chargers are going to be playoff pursuit, good team, got Harbaugh, and just the way we are, just no chance.
Doesn't get any easier in week 2. You are taking on at home for your home opener, the defending Super Bowl champions in the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's a loss. Did you know though? It's actually crazy because divisional games can be so hit or miss. The only thing I will say though is that the Seahawks have always had our numbers for the last 5-6 years now.
I mean, add on a ring and the roster they've got now, they haven't really lost many of their big stars that won in the Super Bowl last year. I think the hangover might be a thing, but I think they're not going to be a victim. I think they'll be absolutely fine. I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but I think they'll still be in the playoffs. I still think they'll win a playoff game, or at least make the divisional round. I think up against the Rams, maybe if everyone's healthy, the Niners, which is a big if, they could fall to them. But I think they're still the third.
They're a 10+. It's a 10+ win team.
Yeah. I don't see them falling off at all, unless the classic thing happens: JSN goes down, or Sam Darnold goes down, or Williams goes down. Or
that defense is so good though. They could scrape some wins just by saying we're going to run the ball hard, and the defense is going to be lights out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that defense. I mean, Witherspoon, I absolutely love. I think he is such a great player. But week 3, you're back on the road once again against the NFC West, but this time against the 49ers.
I think this is an interesting one, right? You say it's on the road, yeah?
Yeah.
It's going to be a loss, but for whatever reason, we can upset the 49ers. And actually, I think we've been saying it for a long time now, right? The decline of the 49ers is there. Their roster, I can't think of the last big addition or the last big draft thing that's hit, right? It's going downhill. They're always hurt. Ricky Pearsall's just got hurt as well now. Christian Kirk's been hurt now as well, right? They're always getting banged up, always losing things. So I think at this point in the year, hopefully, they'll be relatively healthy and they'll probably do a number on us, yeah.
That's the thing. If they keep McCaffrey, Purdy, Kittle, Mike Evans, Christian Kirk.
They're all getting old. They're getting old, though.
They're still, I still think you got them and Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, all healthy. This team has to be a playoff team, surely. I think they made the playoffs last year with being the second most injured team. I think it was last year, and they made it with that. So I think if you get all those players back, and I still think,
it's Shanahan though, isn't it? That's what it really is. It's Shanahan, and it's Brock Purdy, and then Mac Jones coming in, for times. It's Shanahan ultimately, and they've had a good defense. Obviously, they had Robert Saleh with them last year. So yeah, good team.
Yeah. Week 4, you're staying on the road, but this time going from the West Coast to the East Coast at MetLife Stadium and taking on the Giants.
I think this is going to be a win. I've got to have some positivity, right? I'm not saying it's definitely a win, but it's one of the few winnable games on our schedule. And so I'm going to take advantage and say we win this one.
I mean, I already knew it was tough, but I'm looking now at every fixture from game to game, and it's literally littered with playoff contenders. There's only
we're in the NFC West, and we've got 6 games against either the Super Bowl team, the NFC Conference team, or the wild card. It's hell.
Literally to have the AFC West, NFC East, and NFC West in your schedule. It's literally it's torture. It's absolute torture. Week 5, you're back at home, and this time you're taking on the Detroit Lions.
I desperately want us to win this because the OC is Drew Petzing, who was our OC last year. I think he should be locked up for crimes against offensive football. He is awful. I really hope we could win it. It would be a great upset. I don't think we will. We played them a couple of years back and it was 16-13, I think. I'd happily lose 16-13 again because it would mean their offense also stank and people got to see him for 4 years. But I'll say it's a loss.
Fair enough. Well, going on to week 6, you are traveling once again to the NFC West, but this time the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, it's going to be an L. I really like the Rams, like Stafford where he's at. Myles Garrett there now as well. It's not going to be a fun day. Obviously the Rams there.
And potentially, it might not be at this point in the season, but you never know.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Aaron Donald.
Well, I've seen as well their favourites to land Vita Bay. The rich get richer.
Well, our next pod is actually going to be the Buccaneers, our next team in focus. So that is one of our talking points. So
tough one there, yeah.
I mean, stay tuned for that if you are listening. If you get for our guest, Murph is going to come on and talk all things Bucks. So
he'll somehow give them a 13-4 prediction or something.
Well, week 7, you are taking on a team that probably should have been in the Super Bowl last year if it weren't for an injury to their quarterback, the Denver Broncos at home.
Yeah, this is going to be a loss. Like, not even so much the offense. I do think there'll be a regression with the Broncos, to be fair, this year. You know, I think the big thing is Bo Nix's health. Like, we discussed it on the QB podcast. Like, his knee just doesn't look like it belongs in his body. Like, it's really bad. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts him. I think there'll be a slight regression. I'm not saying they're not going to be the Cardinals, but they are going to, for me, regress a little bit. With that said, I still think it's a loss, obviously, where we're at.
Well, week 8, you are heading over to Texas and taking on the Dallas Cowboys.
Win. We always beat the Dallas Cowboys. Well, I'm not even like, that's the most confident win I can say this entire schedule, genuinely.
Week 9, you're staying on the road, but this time you're traveling to Seattle and taking on the Seahawks.
And taking the L. Massively taking the L.
Well, week 10.
It doesn't get better.
At home to the Rams.
Yeah, it's an L, obviously. It is an L. I mean, hopefully by this point, like, I've got to be honest with you, at this point, we should be seeing, like, Gardner Minshew or Carson Beck or whatever. Get rid of Kobe as soon as possible, obviously. But that'd be interesting. But yeah, it's going to be an L, obviously.
Well, week 11, you are traveling to Arrowhead and taking on the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's an L. Well, that'd be interesting to see what the Chiefs look like this year. Obviously, Pat coming back. They've obviously had to reshuffle quite a bit. Rashee Rice being the number one option now on offense. Travis Kelce isn't what he is. I think Spags still does incredible stuff on the defense. But they've lost some pieces. I can't remember off the top of my head. The cornerback that the Rams traded for.
Yeah, McDuffie.
That's it. Yeah, that's another piece gone. Couple of aging pieces on that defense as well. So, you know, it's definitely not going to be the same powerhouse team as old, I think, is the way I would look at it. It's sort of similar to the Broncos. I think you might see a little regression. And, you know, if you've got the Chargers on the way up there as well, who knows, that division can look a little different. Yeah,
I mean, they've brought in, obviously, Delane to come in, secondary, you know, with Duffy going the other way. But I still think, I even though they had a bad 2025 and he's been injured, but I just feel I can't ever write off Mahomes to at least make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the AFC and make the Super Bowl.
I agree, yeah.
I can see him going back in the playoffs, you know, maybe even win a wild card round game. But I do think, then again, I've talked about a lot this last few months, you know, the Bills and Ravens have got probably the two best teams, but they've got new head coaches. You know, the Bengals have got, you know, if everyone's healthy, they could be a threat, but then that offensive line in defense would worry me a little bit. Zach Taylor's well, his coaching. The AFC is there for the taking. I mean, the Chargers, Herbert hasn't yet really proved in the playoffs. You know, the Patriots have an easy schedule, but they've got AJ Brown. It's.
I don't think people see the Patriots being as good as they were last year either. To be fair, like,
I don't think that
they had a very easy schedule, and certainly in the playoff run, they got very. You've spoken about the Broncos game. You know, they lost Bo Nix, and then the snow came in like that. That was, and they still nearly lost the game. I think the wild card for me will be the Texans. You know, does CJ Stroud get it together? That defense is monstrous. You know, CJ Stroud needs to play at a level where he's not detrimental to the team, and they probably do really well.
That's the thing. I mean, that Patriots divisional round loss, what was it, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions?
Yeah.
It was only like a 6-point game, and
because the defense played lights out. The defense were very, very good, and that's what I mean. Like, if CJ Stroud just doesn't choke the game away, they're probably pretty competitive.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I think what every team needs, what they need right now, is him to be like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold wasn't the reason they won the Super Bowl, but he was confident, didn't give the ball away. when it mattered as well. And I think that's all Stroud needed to be. Was just a compliment.
They can have Jacoby Brissett. Take Jacoby Brissett.
To be fair, like, no, I'm not going to say Mac Jones.
No, don't say it. Don't say it because it's not true.
I do think he might be the best backup in the league. I can't think of a better backup.
Absolutely, is one of the. Well, they like Taylor Bagent in Chicago, don't they? But he's never actually really played. But well, I suppose technically Mendoza might be the best backup in the league.
Yeah, to be
Kirk
fair.
starting, but yeah. You could argue as well if Mendoza's started, then Kirk is the best backup in the league.
No.
Really interesting.
No, I do think, compare him to, like, I don't know, Quinn Ewers or
give over Quinn Ewers. Take the Dolphins glasses off, Andy. Quinn Ewers.
I'm saying compare him to how bad it is there. Like, no, I wouldn't have Quinn Ewers over Mac Jones, but you think about.
Mac Jones probably is. Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, Mac Jones is probably one of the best backups, I would say personally, in the league.
Yeah, agreed.
But no, we'll go on to week 12. The team who was last on the show, team season preview wise, we've got the Commanders at home.
It's interesting, right? I think the Commanders are a tough read. They've had a couple of changes on, the coaching side of it. Our good friend Cliff Kingsbury is no longer the OC over there. He's actually the assistant head coach in LA, which is insane to me. Jaden Daniels obviously coming off that injury. And, it's interesting. I've been watching Quarterback on Netflix, right? And obviously Jaden's on there. He talks about the injury and stuff. Elbow on your throwing arm is interesting. And I do wonder how much of an impact that's going to make. But I think you look at, like, Jaden Daniels in general. He is a very slim QB. He's very lightweight. And you just think, do you just see the repeat in week 4 or something where he just gets smashed on a sack and he's out for the season again? I think I'll take the odds and I'll say that the Commanders win. But this is one what I would potentially circle as a game where you say, do the Cardinals cause an upset, or who's in at QB for the Cardinals?
And I want to shout out his mum. His mum seems like such an incredible person. Just has his best interest at heart. I really, that was my takeaway from the whole series, was just how much of a great mother she is to him. So,
and obviously Brandon Ayuk's going to be part of the team soon. So
yeah, his world tour, right? He's going for his world tour soon.
Oh my goodness,
that is crazy. I think he's going to spend the whole season just locked into the Niners. No one's going to want to get him. And I think he's just going to be sat at home on the couch. Yeah. Why would you want to? Why would you want to?
He's not going to be sat at home. He won't be sat at home on the couch, Andy. He'll probably show up at the facility. He'll probably show up at the Commander's facility.
Do you remember that whole meme with was it Jamal Adams heading into the Jets facility?
Yeah. That will be it. Yeah.
God, I think when you're literally mocking your head coach's car crash,
it's insane.
It's absolutely mind-boggling. I would not want him anywhere near my team.
No, I agree.
So you've got a week 14 bye, but before that, in week 13, you are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it's going to be an L. Week 14 bye as well, by the way, is horrible. But yeah, Eagles will be an L, and then we'll enjoy the bye week. That'll be a victory for us.
Yeah, some golf in the desert, a day on the sun lounger, the pool, amazing stuff. I will say a week 14 bye is good if you're a contender, because I found a lot of teams who have.
I could agree with that.
A little bit of a rest, but I think it depends on where you are on a season. I think, but no. Week 15, this is easily the best game on paper you've got in a while, maybe in the whole season. A home game against the Jets.
Yes, and I'm hoping I'll be there for this actually.
Ooh, okay.
Because we're out in Arizona at that time. I believe it's the 20th of December. That would be good. I'm going to put it down as a win. It's one of the few games on the schedule again that I think we can win. So I will say a W. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully you'll get to enjoy that. And
if we lose and I'm in person, it will be hell.
I've been there. I've been there many a time. It's not fun. It's not fun at all.
No.
Week 16 is your final road game of the season, and you are heading to the Superdome and taking on the Saints.
Again, I am going to be greedy and say this is a win, right? I do think the Saints are beatable. There's something about it. I think we can do it. Tyler Show played well towards the end of last year. But the Saints just seem so beatable. They just seem so beatable, I'll say. And also at that point in the year, bit of momentum. And the thing is as well, right, is, bad teams, right, will obviously sort of trail off to the end of the year and guys might not be brought in or whatever. The fact that we've got a first-year head coach, right, means that guys on the roster are going to actually be thinking about next year and whether they're kept around next year. And there'll be $200 million in the off season for us to spend, and the GM might be gone. Like, there will be guys still competing at that point on our end. I think we could win that one.
Yeah, I think that could be true. Yeah, I do. Week 17 is a home game against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Again, I think it's winnable. I think it's a good winnable game. I will put it down as a win, just because I'm an optimist. I do think we can win that. The best part of this is you'll notice that most of the ones that I'm saying, that's 3 wins on the trot, I think. And this is like prime, like draft position territory. So we're just pushing ourselves away from any sort of like chance for QB prospect or whatever. But I don't believe in tanking personally. I think it's a stupid mindset logic. Like, even if you get the best talent and you bring them into the worst situation, you're better bringing in like the second best talent into an infinitely better situation. I think we can win this game. Yeah.
And then finally, week 18, you've got a home game against the Niners. Always a hard one to predict because the team's resting.
Yeah.
For the final time this episode, win, lose or tie.
I am going to say win. Right, I am going to say win because I do believe they'll probably be rested. Okay. The flip side of that though is if they haven't secured a playoff spot and they're in the race, it will mean everything to them. But then also I'd rather ruin their season too. And we just have a knack for whatever reason with the 49ers, like splitting the record on the year. So for me, yeah, I think we can win it.
Okay, love that. So that means at the end of the predictions, you're predicting a 6-11 record.
I think it's achievable. And like the thing is, like, what was the other lowest you had? Was 6-11?
Well, that's the thing, yeah. So we've got, I'm not going to say what team, you can find out if you listen to the episodes, but we have one of the guests before in the past who predicted a 6-11 record. So right now, Ollie, you are our joint least most optimistic fan going into the season. So far, 12 teams in. And
look, this is the thing. Like, I think 4 wins is probably actually realistic, but you just never know what happens in the league. Like, it could be 5, it could be 6. The Titans played us last year in the most comically awful game, and they won it. And everyone thought we were going to win that game. And there's always upsets. You're talking about, you only need 2 games for something to go your way. They missed the field goal. Like, the Giants missed the field goal at the end. The Saints for a pick in the 4th. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of stuff. You just have to be on the right side of it, and you go from a 4-win team to a 6-win team. So I'm going to be the optimist. I'm going to say 6 wins. I think the QB situation will dictate everything, obviously. Also, Jeremiah Love. I think Jeremiah Love's going to be nuts.
Well, I've never watched him play, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. I've never seen him play in college, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. He might just be that electric. But we'll find out in a few months, a few weeks' time, really, when you think about it, only just over a month till the season begins. At time of recording, we are recording this on July 30th, in case you're wondering why some breaking news hasn't been reported by now and the time this episode is released on August 2nd. But in the meantime, Ollie, great having you on, and thank you for coming on today.
Always great to come on, mate. Thank you very much.
Well, no problem at all. But in the meantime, this has been our Across the Pod NFL podcast team season preview for the Arizona Cardinals. I have been, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, with our guest in Cardinals fan, Ollie Kent, and we'll see you guys next time for our next season preview. Take care.